I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, October the 1st, 2014. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met today with U.S. President Barack Obama at the White House. At a press appearance ahead of the meeting, the president mentioned some issues that the leaders would address, among them the situation in Gaza.
We have to find ways to change the status quo so that both Israeli citizens are safe in their own homes and school children in their schools from the possibility of rocket fire, but also that we don't have the tragedy of Palestinian children being killed as well.
Netanyahu said he was committed to finding a peace that meets Israel's security needs. In their talks, the two leaders reportedly also addressed other regional concerns like the rise of the Islamic State or ISIS and the threat of a nuclear Iran, in addition to prospects for peace with the Palestinians. It was the hope of the Jonathan Pollard caucus in Israel's Knesset that Netanyahu would also raise the issue of a release for the convicted Israeli spy during his meeting today with the president. Knesset members Nachman Shai of the Labor Party and Ayelet Shaked of Beit HaYehudi, or the Jewish Home Party, issued a joint statement yesterday urging Netanyahu to ask Obama to commute Pollard's life sentence to the almost 29 years already served. They said Pollard has served too long and it is time to free him. As you may have seen on IBA News, before heading to Washington, Netanyahu met with United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon at the UN offices in New York City yesterday, where he addressed the UN's bias against Israel. The Times of Israel cites sources in the Prime Minister's office saying that in their meeting, Netanyahu declared that there was no justice in the fact that the standard applied to Israel was different than that applied to other countries. Like Syria, for example, Netanyahu stressed that unlike the Assad regime, Israel did not target civilians in the recent operation in Gaza, and that Israel regretted any innocent civilian losses. The Prime Minister reportedly also brought up the fact that the UN was focusing its inquiry of Operation Protective Edge in Gaza on Israel and not on Hamas and its use of UN facilities to store and fire rockets from at Israel. As you may have seen on IBA News, Netanyahu also met yesterday and addressed 300 leaders of the American Jewish community in New York City. Malcolm Hoenlein, Executive Vice Chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, introduced the Prime Minister. When asked about the speech, Hoenlein told JBS Today, he said the Prime Minister gave a very moving address where he spoke of the global dangers to the region posed by Iran, the threat of ISIS and other militant Islamism groups, and the heroism of the IDF forces in the region. Hoenlein said that at the meeting, the Prime Minister got a message of strong support from across the spectrum of Jewish life in advance of his trip to Washington as he meets President Obama today. The Times of Israel reports that the Palestinians have asked the UN Security Council to set a deadline of November 2016 for an Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The report cites a draft of the resolution obtained by the Associated Press today, which reportedly also demands an end to all Israeli military operations and settlement activities, the opening of all border crossings in the Gaza Strip, and deployment of an international presence throughout the Palestinian territories. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas told a group of journalists in Ramallah that an appeal to the UN Security Council for a 2 to 3 year time frame was in the works, and if it fails, the PA would turn to the International Criminal Court and possibly reconsider its security coordination with Israel. A Spanish diplomat who saved hundreds of Jews during the Holocaust was posthumously honored by Israel's living memorial to the Holocaust, Yad Vashem. Sebastián de Romero Radigales was named Righteous Among the Nations by Yad Vashem in Jerusalem yesterday. His granddaughter Elena Colito Castelli accepted the honor on his behalf. Radigales had worked to arrange the repatriation of 510 Jews from Salonika who had Spanish citizenship who were being deported to Auschwitz. He also protected a group of 367 Jews with Spanish citizenship who had arrived in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp until the Spanish government allowed for their transfer to Spanish Morocco. At the ceremony yesterday was Isaac Revach, who was just a child when he was saved from Bergen-Belsen because of these efforts. Revach had urged Yad Vashem to bestow the honor on Radagales. He wrote, "Being released from a Nazi camp is an extraordinary event. It all happened thanks to an outstandingly courageous and humane man." And turning now to our JBS programming for tonight, Wednesday, October the 1st. Coming up at 7:30, a tribute to Soviet Jewry movement heroine Avital Sharansky from the American Jewish Historical Society. And then at 9 o'clock, Mark Golub sits down with Soviet Jewry movement hero, refusnik Yosef Mendelevich. That's on JBS and jbstv.org. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, October the 1st, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.